Wolf Pack, what's going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves here with our first Risers and Fallers show, looking at the rest of season value of fantasy. I don't think there's too many shows, if any, out there doing this right now. So I am super pumped to bring this to you where I go through all the meaningful stats from the last week, snap count developments, depth chart movements, all that good stuff. We're going to dive right in tonight and tell you all the impact on your rest of season rankings, big boards, all that good stuff. And there's no real, I'm going to go position by position, but other than that, there's no real semblance of order to this. I'm just going to kind of go in the list that I see them, tell you where they now rank. As always, if you have questions, get them on in. Happy to answer anything and everything after we get through these players. I've got about 40 plus I want to discuss, so I'm going to get right into that action. But if you don't mind, you like the content, thumbs up will help us get out to more people, reach and grow the Wolf Pack. It'd be amazing. So thank you guys for considering doing that. But let's hop right in. Let's get into these risers, fallers, penny stocks. As a reminder, I'm going to be live every weekday, Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you want to get live with the pack, subscribe, hit that bell, or just know at 7 p.m. you got us here and ask any questions you need. Let's dive right in. Tom Brady. I think this guy's chasing records this year. So he is a definite riser for me on the big board rest of season at this point. Another 9 touchdowns to start the season. Just absolutely insane from Mr. Thomas Edward Brady doing it at this age. I have him now up to QB5 in my rest of season big board and rankings, right behind only Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Murray. And that's crazy because you almost need Konami upside to hit those top 5 levels, or you're just throwing touchdowns at an insane rate. And that's exactly what Tom Brady has now been doing. 9 touchdowns over expectation. In this typical number of throws, in this typical number of yards, most would average 5 quarterbacks, according to J.J. Zacharyson. That's his expected points. The guy just continues to slay. Lamar Jackson also right around the risers column, and not because he looked great as a passer, the complete opposite of Tom Brady, but because he is looking great as a runner now with this complete backfield mess. We'll hit them later. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but 107 yards, 2 scores on the ground when they needed it most against the Chiefs, leading that insane comeback win last night. Loved the action. Loved what I saw from Lamar as a runner. Now, it was so gross for the first half that I've kind of avoided bumping him too far. I have him behind Brady on the rest of season rankings, but it just went good reminder of what his upside is just as a sheer runner, as a sheer Konami code upside there. Got to talk about Kyla Murray, though. Number 1 overall. I know Pat Mahomes was on the top of most people's lists entering the year, but at this point, it's got to be Kyla Murray, who goes for 400, 3 touchdowns, a couple untimely interceptions, but another 31 yards and score on the grounds. I mean, 5 total touchdowns. It's a weekly cheat code for this guy. It's looking like another one of those years where you got Mahomes, Murray, like maybe Dak. We'll talk about him in a sec. It's just a huge edge to have one of these QBs putting up 30 plus a week for you. Maybe we need to reevaluate our weight on QB stance entering next year because Kyla Murray is just a cheat code. It's unbelievable. Kirk Cousins, another great performance from the QB position, 22 of 32, 244, and 3 scores. So I guess great's a little exaggerated, but more so high floor. Each and every week, he's now thrown multiple TDs in 10 of his last 11 starts. Just a nice, solid, sturdy floor. Not all that exciting, but ultimately he deserves to be top 12 in the rest of season rankings moving forward. That's exactly where I have him. Actually, I just bumped him below Justin Fields. We're going to talk about him right now. We got Andy Dalton out for what's looking like a month at least, was the latest report I saw. So Justin Fields, talk about Konami upside. He bumps right into my top 12, knocking Kirk Cousins outside of my top 12 and should have all the room to roam. He didn't look amazing in his action, about a half of action this first week, but should have had another touchdown to Allen Robinson. A beautiful throw that Allen Robinson dropped for him. Too bad. But now that you can go into the week with him as your game plan, it didn't look like Matt Nagy had any type of package ready in case Fields had to go in there. It kind of was like Fields running the Andy Dalton stuff, but he still did end up rushing it 10 times because that pocket was breaking down, and that's why you love the guy, the rushing upside he has. There's going to be many more weeks where he gets far more than the 40 yards we saw on the ground this last week. So right into my top 12 quarterbacks. If Andy Dalton's truly out a month, You can't imagine he comes back and gets this gig, although it seems like freaking Matt Nagy wants to just trot Andy Dalton. He hurts his knee and gets him back out there. Like, I'm just picturing Andy Dalton crutching down the tunnel, and it's Andy's music, and Nagy slaps him on the ass and puts him back in. Like, it seems like he's obsessed with getting Andy Dalton in there. Let's hope that's not the case for Justin Fields' sake, because fantasy numbers are going to be so much better. But Jameis Winston, one of the bigger fallers of this list. And again, there's no kind of order to it. I'm just going to kind of give you the names, give you the important stat lines that we saw. 111 yards. So he's been under 200 yards back-to-back weeks. Sadly, this time, not 5 touchdowns to go with it. Instead, 2 interceptions. Horrific. They only mustered 128 yards of total offense. What an abysmal performance. The lowest in the Sean Payton era of all time. Since 1996, the worst mark in the franchise. Just abysmal. And that's got to be a little bit nerve-wracking because Taysom Hill started to sneak back in there. I don't think they're going to hand it over after just one bad performance, but this shit continues. I mean, Jameis Winston could be seeing the bench sooner than later. A week after looking like he might have been one of the steals of the draft with 5 touchdowns, we see the complete opposite flip side of that. And the Panthers, yeah, they're a good defense, but to me, it's not like the Rams. Nothing insane there to go against. And now you get New England. Not exactly the rebound spot you need for Jameis Winston. I'd be pretty nervous here. I definitely have him on the bench, and I don't think he's a must-hold by any means in my quarterback rankings. I have him all the way now down to quarterback 22, and that might even be too high considering the risk of him getting benched at this point. But somebody who's risen huge in his stead, that's Derek Carr. He now has the 7th most passing yards of all time for the first 2 games. 382 this week, 400, over 400 on Monday Night Football. I don't know how he's doing it, who he's throwing to, how this is happening, but it's happening. This is an aerial show. Gruden is taking just the deep shots. I love that, like 3rd and 2, that aggressive go for it. Henry Ruggs, 60-yard bomb to finish off the second half, kind of bury that game. Love the aggressiveness from Carr, from Gruden. That we haven't typically seen that from Carr, and it's beautiful. It's working out to perfection. These other weapons are starting to emerge around Waller. I bumped Carr all the way up to QB 13. I had him at like 27, 15 spots. I don't think I've ever bumped somebody from that low to almost a fringe QB 1, but only 26% rostered right now out there in a lot of leagues. I think Derek Carr, by far the biggest QB riser, and just in general, big board riser, was outside my like top 200, right into the top 100 with these last couple performances. If you're QB needy, go check your waiver wire now for this guy. I have him above one of the fallers now, guy I loved coming into the year, Joe Burrow, 19 of 30, looking horrible, 207, 2 TDs, 3 interceptions against a Bears team that got absolutely manhandled by Matthew Stafford just a week prior. They had the lowest cumulative PFF grade coming into the game, and Burrow just comes and craps himself. Not what you wanted to see from this guy at all. He still has great weaponry. He's still probably worth a roster spot, but it's getting the Steelers this next week. Not a great matchup for another rebound. To me, Burrow, I have him now sliding in at QB 17. I'd rather have Trey Lance. I'd rather have, Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, some of the guys we just listed off. Give me some upside stash or just a higher floor guy, because Burrow's looking to me like the ceiling might be like a Cousins, Carr, like 2 TD, 300-yard day, and the floor is significantly lower than what those two are displaying. Not a big fan of what I'm seeing despite that elite weaponry he has there. And then a couple other quick ones to hit. Dak Prescott fell just a little bit below Brady, who we mentioned as a riser, probably below Lamar Jackson at this point. It just was like, you'd think every single week it's going to be a factory, certainly against a team like the Chargers, who should be able to put their points up, but the defense looked a little bit stiffer this last week. Maybe Herbert's just a little bit overvalued. I don't know. But they weren't giving up the points we saw Tom Brady plastering on them. And they just try to control the clock. It's clear, if a game stays close, they don't want to have to rely on Dak Prescott humming it 60-plus times. No touchdowns, 247 and an interception. Just a pretty gross overall performance. One more riser I did want to make sure to hit at the QB position. Another guy widely available, 22% rostered right now. If you miss out on Carr, I'd be screaming to go get Teddy Bridgewater. 26 of 34, beautiful performance. 328 yards, 2 TDs, even without Judy. No Judy, no problem. The guy ripped it up. But even more impressive, it's the most conservative guy, right? Teddy Bridgewater doesn't take any shots. He now leads the league in 20-plus yard attempts. He's pushing it downfield. He's pushing it downfield with accuracy and with success. I love what I'm seeing out of Teddy Bridgewater right now. He's got good weapons, and especially if Judy comes back, if and when Judy comes back, that's going to be a deadly potential offense, the way he's playing, the way the line is protecting him. This Broncos team could scare, could surprise down the stretch. And the last faller I did want to touch upon is Tannehill. I mean, you have Julio Jones, you have A.J. Brown, and has he not thrown a single touchdown? Oh, my goodness. That is terrifying. Yeah, he got 347 yards. The offense did pick the pace up a little bit, certainly led the charge by Derrick Henry. We're going to talk about it in 1 second. But I'm a bit worried about Tannehill. I saw him get cut in a couple leagues, and I'm not going and sprinting out to go get this guy. So on the rest of the season big board, which, again, you can find at rotostreetjournal.com, Ryan Tannehill, QB 15, right around Joe Burrow. Trey Lance is a stash. I'd rather have Carr. I'd rather have Cousins at this point. Two guys that were certainly below Tannehill coming into the year for me now have risen above him. Now let's get to the running back movers. Not a ton of action here. Receivers are where we're going to have a ton of names to cover. And again, I will hit all your questions. We got 16 already. Let's get that up to 30, 40. Let's get some questions in here, folks. And again, likes help us get out to more people. It would be so appreciated. YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, wherever you're tuned in, retweets, shares, all that good stuff. Let's get out to more people and get this Wolfpack growing, baby. Let's get to running backs, though, now. And again, no clear-cut order. One stat I just want to toss out here before I get into specific names. There's only been running backs with 80% of their team's carries in week 2. There's only 8 of those guys. Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, David Montgomery, Chris Carson, Derrick Henry, James Robinson, and Najee Harris. Most of those guys are right in those first 2 rounds of the rest of Steve's big board. James Robinson, not quite there. But let's cover some of these names and more as we dive into this. Zeke Elliott, 16 carries, 71 TD in this week 2 effort. Stat line looked pretty good. So why is he falling on the big board right now? Oh, Tony Pollard, folks, 13 carries, 109 yards, 1 TD, 31 receiving yards. Tony Pollard's the RB9 on the season. Zeke Elliott's the RB25. Yes, Zeke has seen more of the snaps, but Zeke's goes from 78.6% rushing share to just 55% this last week. These are some concerning usage trends, and I don't know if they're trying to keep their prized possession, Zeke Elliott fresh, or if they want to see what they have in Pollard, given that contract is just a couple years away. Pollard's just looking better by every single metric in Pro Football Focus. In the last couple of years, behind only Nick Chubb in yards after the just great. If you look at all the efficiency metrics, it's all Pollard. Significantly better than Zeke in that front. So Zeke falling a bit on the big board now. Still would be a first 2-rounder if you were redrafting today, just because it is a good offense. It is a guy that's getting good work, and he has some juice behind that. He looks like he's got a little zip and wiggle there. But I have him now dropped down to RB11. That's 5 spots below the ECR and rest of season rankings, where he's not usually number 6, right ahead of David Montgomery in a tier of like high-end RB2s, very, very low-end RB1s. Rising, though, well ahead of Zeke at this point, and into my top 3, Derrick Henry. This one doesn't need too much explanation. 35 carries, 35, 182 and 3 scores. It was looking like he was going to be a faller in the first half. Very slow start, not looking great. And then bam, 60-yard touchdown, 9-yard touchdown, and then a 1-yard score. It all en route to racking up again 182 yards. This is the Derrick Henry we all know and love, and we're hoping we were getting when we spent a top 5 pick on him. I love it. Love to see the steamroller back, getting better with volume. Steve just carving up the defense there. Pound him, pound him, pound him. Clearly it worked. And I think that's the expectation moving forward, is they're going to continue to pound this guy, number 3, behind only Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey on my big board there. Joe Mixon, I think a lot of people, his stats weren't that great. Well, he had 15.4% target share in week 1, fell down to 6.9 in week 2, but he has seen 100% of the team's rushes this past week, 80.6% total rush share last week. The guy is a monster. He's the clear-cut workhorse. He's going to have better days. The offense was not clicking at all. So this was a sign where the final numbers weren't great, but if that leads somebody to oh, no, inconsistent Mixon's back, he's getting all the work. He's an important guy in my top 7 overall, so I just wanted to make sure to point out that usage for him. Now, Austin Ekeler, very important usage. Not seeing a target in week 1. Well, then he gets above 20% target share in week 2, seeing 9 receptions on 9 targets, 61 yards in addition to 54 yards rushing. It is, only 5 carries going to the backups. That's pretty damn close to a workhorse style role. The one thing is Mike Williams, who we'll definitely be highlighting in a little bit, continues to get fed in the receiving game. So still, to see the 9 targets was very, very encouraging. Definitely a locked and loaded RB1. He's still seeing, at times getting removed at the goal line, but last week 1, he saw all the goal line carries, ran in a 2-point conversion on Sunday. So they're not opposed to giving him the short yardage stuff at all. 78% of the snaps in the first half, but not as much in the second half. Still looking like an every down type of guy with goal line upside. And now it's great to see that receiving upside back to him. In terms of big fallers, Mike Davis, 9 carries, 38 yards, did add 7 receptions. That was pretty juicy. And he has seen some decent work through these first couple weeks. 34 touches. That's towards the top 15 or so in the league in terms of work. But why is he a big faller? 1, he's not looking very good on the work, not very efficient at all. Again, 9 carries, 38 yards, not great. And then you're getting to Corduro Patterson. Not great as a rusher, 7 carries, 11 yards, but gets a touchdown on the ground, removed Mike Davis right from the stripe. They're looking like Patterson's going to be that hammer at the goal line. And then he also gets 5 receptions, 58 yards, and another score. Just looking like a nightmare, looking like a gross situation. So sure, there's some work, but it's not great. Patterson, again, looking some great vision. But was great in traffic as a kick returner, and you're kind of seeing a bit of that now. One of the best pickups of the week will be Cordero Patterson, only 13% rostered right now. I was banging that drum early last week. I hope you listened and don't have to blow your fab. Of course, I didn't listen to my own advice, and I cut him for Christian Kirk. Woo. But we're going to go back and go get that guy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, oh, God, 13 carries, 46 yards. Oh. A fumble in the 2 minutes remaining to blow the game. I mean, that could send that guy right down below Darrell Williams, because clearly it's not like he's bringing this new gear to the offense that we all hoped and thought he might as a college prospect. Why wouldn't they go with the safer option at this point? Now, I'm not saying I don't think Helaire is going to get benched for Darrell Williams, but this split might become a little bit closer. If there is any positive, Williams only saw 3 touches on his 14 snaps. At this point, Helaire has dominated all of the rushing and somewhat of the receiving work from the backfield, but it's not amounting to anything. It's just kind of empty calories. Even though it's in a Mahomes-led offense, it shouldn't be empty calories. It doesn't feel like a situation where it's like, oh, buy this usage, even though he's not scoring, like it's going to come in, it's going to, ultimately tilt. We were waiting for that all last year, and it never happened, and it's looking like it's not going to happen again this year. So Helaire, one of the bigger busts it's looking like potentially this year. Somebody I was fading. I said not until mid-round 3 would I touch this guy. And so I never really ended up with him, and I'm pretty happy about that after being a complete fool the year before. What do we make of this Ravens running back mess? Williams, again, looked great, but he can't just get a complete and utter total of it. He got 49% of the snaps. Murray had 36% of the snaps. He's the one that gets the touchdown. Woo. And then, not to be outdone, Devonta Freeman has the longest run of the night with 31-yard rush up the gut. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be disgusting. The only rusher you truly need there is Lamar Jackson. If I'm betting on somebody, it's Tyson Williams, but this up and down inconsistent usage of this backfield should continue and cause headaches all year. Are we panicking about Alvin Kamara this last week? I don't know. I mean, clearly the focal point of the offense, that's good, but the focal point of an offense is 128 total yards. Not good. It was bad. It was really bad. 8 carries for 5 yards. Oh my God. 5 receptions for 25. This is where I'm at with Kamara. Like I had him at 2, 3 just a couple days ago, but this was terrifying. 1, because Jameis Winston, that's going to be a roller coaster. So if this is his best case, the reason we all got back in on Kamara was Jameis Winston. We got a pocket passer. We got somebody that can really just do what Breeze was doing, but in a more electric arm, right? Well, maybe not. Maybe we're a little faster. So that's our best case, is a roller coaster Jameis, that we're going to have some of these dud games, potentially. And then the worst case is Taysom Hill might take over. And we saw what that meant for Kamara. He saw, 4 targets over 3 games with Taysom Hill. So it was a disaster effort. I think that's probably the worst game we're going to get out of Kamara. But I see a lot of people being like, buy low now. This is the lowest you're going to ever see Kamara's value, right? Yeah, it's probably the worst game he's going to have, but I'm not sitting here like this is a guy in an offense that I'm licking my chops to get into right now. I don't know. I'd be a little bit skeptical of this guy. I bumped him down to 7 or so overall just to reflect, it's still Kamara. He still should have just such a versatile focal point type of role every week, but I am nervous about this offense as a whole and what it could ultimately mean for him down the stretch. Daryl Henderson, was about to get rocketed up the rankings. Another just focal point of the offense, 13 carries, 53 yards, and a TD, all coming. And again, 3 receptions for 29 yards. Like I said, focal point, bell cow. Third quarter hits, though, rib injury, and that's the whole reason it was tricky to trust him. Even after he got the bell cow usage, did not return. And who comes in but Sony? 10 carries, straight, boom. 46 yards on him, looking nice and nimble, reading the cuts, looking solid. He gets a tough matchup against the Bucks, but if this injury lingers, Sony might just take the reins and not look back. McVay's always about riding whoever's getting it done, and Sony looked like he was ready to get it done in this offense with that zone scheme. So wanted to highlight that injury. Make sure you track that and see what happens, because Henderson, again, looked like the focal point, a guy I wanted to bump up the rankings, but then the injury bug nipped him yet again. And now let's just talk about a couple of running back by committees. Melvin Gordon, the starter, looked horrible. 13 carries, 31 yards, just abysmal performance. Did catch both his targets for 38, so kind of salvaged his day a little bit through the air. But Williams, Javonte, looking so much better, seeing his equal amount of work, 13 carries, but he racked up 64 yards, so nearly 5 yards per carry for Williams versus 2.4 for Melvin Gordon. I mean, the latter did get all the receiving work, but it's not like Williams can't do that receiving game. So I probably keep him on the bench again for now in this near even split, except they do get the Jets next week, a pretty soft opponent. So maybe you can ride him out. But ultimately, just promising usage trends. I think that's going to continue up into Williams' favor, whereas Melvin Gordon falling down a bit as it goes. James Conner, I think, is droppable. So going to the next running back by committee, I think James Conner is droppable. No need to hit it. 8 carries, 26 yards. Bleh. Nothing. No need to see that. I'm all good. Meanwhile, Chase Edmonds, though, didn't find the end zone. And he probably won't find it a ton, but the versatile receiving role in this explosive attack is going to keep him healthy week in and week out. 46 yards, also gets 5 targets, hauls them all in for 29 yards, out snaps carry James Conner 39 to 24, 5.8 yards per rush compared to a pathetic 3.29 yards slug James Conner there. It's very clear, that Edmonds is the 1A, and that might just become the 1 and the 2 if these types of performances continue. So a little bit of a bump up for Edmonds. I now have him up to RB19, just below Clyde Edwards-Helaire, very close to flipping those two at this point, whereas Conner falls all the way to 47 running back. Ugh, just cut him. No need to hold on to this guy and have him take up the sluggish space on your bench. Just no. Because the goal line back there is Kyla Murray. That's the one thing that we thought he might be able to do there, is score some touchdowns. Let's talk about the running back committee in San Fran, one of the juiciest committees given that zone blocking scheme. Mitchell didn't do much. 17 carries, 42 yards. Pretty gross. Trey Sermon, though, 1 carry, 8 yards, concussion. Michael Hasty, ankle injury that's going to linger for multiple weeks, they've now said. They're working out Lamar Miller. Kerryon Johnson's on the practice squad. Maybe he's worth a pickup at this point. To me, that means Eli Mitchell has a little bit more burn before he just fizzles out into the sun. They're working out. Who else are they working out? Commented away, guys. I know it was Lamar Miller and one other person they brought in for a workout, who's probably going to get signed and run for 100 yards next week. Yeah. So Eli Mitchell, though, running back 23 in my rest of season board, above Myles Gaskin, Jacobs. He might end up holding this role for the rest of the season. It might be the case. So I wanted to highlight him as well. As mentioned at the top, James Robinson, one of very few backs to see 80% of the work in his backfield. 14 carries compared to just 2 for Carlos Hyde. That was flipped the week before, so at least you got that going for James Robinson, a positive step in the right direction. The concern, though, is 11 carries, 47 yards, 3 targets for 17 yards. Just gross, just hideous. And it's the game flow. I mean, this offense is never going to have a positive script, it seems, to run the ball and get James Robinson rolling like he was last year. They didn't really have positive scripts last year. They just kind of committed to it. Urban Meyer hasn't done that quite yet. So James Robinson, encouraging, makes it so he's not like a hate cut type of guy, but still not the type of production. I mean, he was top 10 in points per game, I think, every single week last year. He hasn't even come close to that this last year. So that was worth noting. Again, 80% of the volume, worth noting, but the lack of production also worth noting. Another guy that saw 80% of the carries back-to-back weeks now, Carson, 13 of 14 carries went to him. Last week, he only ceded 2 carries to Penny and DJ Dallas. So right back into that full-time, I'm getting all the work here. Love to see it. 31 yards and 2 scores. That's what really salvaged the day. The 31 yards was pretty scary, pretty gross, but he did score 2 touchdowns. Good to see that for sure. He started to lose some pass catching down work, though. Travis Homer, one of the best pass protectors. I listened to a pod about this. The Seahawks just praising this guy for his pass protection. So that might become a trend where Carson loses some passing down snaps. Not that there's a ton of routes and catches he's going to get, but it doesn't really matter to me. You're going to be the focal point of the backfield in this type of offense that continues to put up points. I think Carson, those touchdowns are going to remain pretty high. That's not a fluke, in my opinion, at all. And last two backfield committees to talk about. Leonard Fournette seems to continue to separate away from Ronald Jones. He got 11 carries, 52 yards, 4 catches for 24 yards. So it seems like he is getting the clear work here, seeing 15 touches to just 7 for Ronald Jones, who did start. But now you're looking through the season, 29 touches for Leonard Fournette to 11 for Ronald Jones. Yeah, obviously the fumble in week 1 helped sway that. But it's clear that Jones is a second fiddle. I think he's the better back. I cannot wait to see this guy actually get a shot somewhere as early as next year when he's a free agent. But for now, Jones could be cuttable. Fournette, mildly usable, but as you saw, getting all that usage, but still not really doing much with it because it's Tom Brady going for records. He's going to throw like 60 touchdowns this year. It's going to be wild. And then last two backfields, the Bills running backs, one anomaly, both guys scoring. It was Josh Allen used to be the goal line de facto back. Well, he ended it off, and maybe this is by design. Zach Moss getting 2 touchdowns at the stripe, 8 carries, 26 yards. A gross stat line, but the 2 touchdowns makes it a sexy stat line at this point. I don't think you can trust that week in, week out. There's going to be plenty more games. We're just seeing 20 yards and no touchdowns than there are going to be multiple touchdown days. Singletary also getting a touchdown, 82 yards, ripping a 46-yard touchdown off the middle. He's also only got a touchdown 1% of the time on his carries. For every 200 carries, he scores a touchdown. So this, to me, seems like an anomaly, but he was the snap leader. I still think it's a sell high on either of these running backs if anybody actually wants them. I don't think you're going to get meaningful, consistent value that you can trust. And then last but not least, Damian Harris. It was good to see that they did not play games. They gave him the block 16 times. So 16 of the 23 carries go to him. James White as well, though, looking very, very viable as a receiver. 20% target share, gets 5 carries as well. So 20 yards on the ground, 45 through the air, gets a touchdown as well. He's only 44% rostered. I think he's going to look like a pretty steady, consistent guy moving forward. And then last but not least, I guess 2 more. Kenneth Gainwell, only 36% roster. I kind of want to mention a few guys. I'll talk about more depth tomorrow on the waiver wire. 6 carries, 14 yards, 2 catches, 18. The stats weren't great, but he did get a 2-point conversion. He kind of seems like the de facto guy when they get in. And Boston Scott, more importantly, didn't see a touch. So Kenneth Gainwell, looking intriguing for the rest of season. But Antonio Gibson, that's the last one I wanted to end with here. How far does he drop at this point? I've got him down to running back 14, just ahead of DeAndre Swift. And based on what happens tonight, that could get flipped without hesitation at this point. He's looked okay, racking up 69 yards on 13 carries, 2 receptions, 4 yards. Okay is the exact word I'm using here, not like a first 2-rounder. More concerning, though, J.D. McKissick, after not being much involved in week 1, getting 6 targets, 5 catches, 83 yards. Also, more frustratingly, getting the goal line touch in the 2-minute offense and scoring on it. Oh, so annoyingly involved. Clearly, all that talk of Christian McCaffrey, the next one, Antonio Gibson, he's got the skill set, taking his game to a next level as a pass. Doesn't seem like that's coming into fruition. I know it's only been 2 weeks, but it seems like he is still trapped in a committee situation where he's going to cede all the receiving work. So ultimately, that was pretty scary to me. Michael Carter also got 11 carries, 59 yards, compared to 12 for Ty Johnson, who got the start and got 50 yards. 5 carries for Tevin Coleman, 24 yards. To me, Carter just showed a little bit more juice than any of those guys. Wouldn't be shocked to see him get more and more touches as the season continues on. Saw him get dropped in a ton of leagues after a frustrating week 1. Go check and see if Michael Carter's out there on your waiver wire. Could see him starting to carve out a more meaningful role. And the last running back I want to touch on is Saquon Barkley. Not a great game, 13 carries, 2 catches, okay, 8 fantasy points. But what was very intriguing, 84% of the snaps. This was not a 50-50 snap share. We're still easing him in. He was in there for the full amount of work you should expect on a week-to-week basis. The touches weren't quite there yet, but they will get there, especially when the script is more positive, and it might start as early as this week against Atlanta. All this is to say is I think you need to buy low on Saquon Barkley. Despite the poor game, I actually bumped him up in my rankings to number 7 RB7. That's +4 ECR. I have him above Zeke. I have him above like maybe even Aaron Jones. I think this guy's going to really rebound and have a killer stretch. We saw some nice burst on a long run there. I'd go get this guy now. I think he's a great buy low, Saquon Barkley. Now, the most loaded position with risers and fallers, that is going to be the wide receiver position. So I'm going to take a quick swig of water. Again, a thumbs up, whether on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, would be so appreciated. Pumped to see we've already got to 34 questions. Amazing. Cannot wait to answer all of those. Give me 1 second. Let's keep it rolling, guys. One quick stat about wide receivers. Let's go to the leaders in target share per the great Scott Barrett at Scott Barrett DFB on Twitter. One of my favorite followers, one of my favorite guys have on this show. Cooper Kupp is leading the league right now in target share. 36%. Debo Samuel, 36%. Brandon Cooks at 3 with 34%. Deontay Johnson, 31%. Coming in at 5. DK Metcalf at 30%. Maybe a good buy low, but right behind him, Tyler Lockett at 30%. Love this one, 7. Marquis Brown, 29%. Cannot wait to discuss that. Tyreek Hill at 28% at 8. 9 is CeeDee Lamb at 28%, tied there. And then Sterling Shepard at 10 with 28%. We're going to touch upon a bunch of those names, but I just wanted to start you out with some intriguing target shares. Let's start at the top of that list, though. Cooper Kupp leading the NFL in target share right now. He is the clear-cut alpha. He's seen 30% target share in both weeks. Only him and Deontay Johnson did that so far in the NFL. 9 catches on 11 targets, 163 yards, not 1 but 2 scores. One of them coming while he was lined in the backfield to a beautiful route. They are just moving this guy all over the place. Hammer that eat breakfast narrative with Matthew Stafford. They mentioned this on both broadcasts now. But if you can have breakfast with a guy every single morning, you clearly love him. We should have seen this coming. I wish that news had broken over the summer, and I might have flipped Woods and Kupp. I think most people were taking Woods ahead of Kupp. Couldn't have been more wrong if we did that, myself included. Too bad to see if you did that. Cooper Kupp, though, up to my number 5 wide receiver in the same tier as Diggs, as Adams, as Tyreek, as Hopkins. That's how good this guy has been and how consistent I think he's going to keep it all year. Here's your crown, King Cooper. Continue it up. But another target hog not far behind, Mr. Terry McLaurin, proving once again QB proof. 14 targets, 11 catches, 100 yards, and a TD. Love to see that performance with Tyler Heineke at the helm. So regardless of whether it's Fitz or Heineke, McLaurin's going to get done. That was against James Bradbury, too, one of the better cover corners in the league. He just roasted him all day. So McLaurin up to wide receiver 6, up to that first-round fringe for me. Loving what I'm seeing from this guy. Should have been the third-round guy we all went, but sadly, not all of us did. In addition, we talked about Deontay Johnson, one of only 2 receivers to see 30% or more target share in back-to-back weeks. 12 targets, 9 catches, 105. Just ho-hum. That's what he does. He sees 10 or more targets every single time he's played a full game. The scary part and why I haven't bumped him up to right around the range of these guys I'm talking about is last play of the game, knee injury. No word yet. How serious is that going to be? A meaningless play on a game they weren't going to come back and win. You hate to see it. You absolutely hate to see it. So ultimately, nervous about the health, and that's what kind of keeps him away from the elite tiers. As long as he's on the field, though, you're looking at, again, like I said, 10 targets, 100-ish yards, and every now and again a touchdown. As steady and safe as they come, Deontay Johnson. We have to touch upon the Broncos, though, specifically Courtland Sutton. First game without Judy. He goes from an 8.6% target share to a 35.3% target share. Goes 9 of 12, 159 yards. I think that led week 2 in receiving. Beautiful performance from this guy. Leaping 55, 34-yard grabs. Teddy Bridgewater, there's this whole narrative. He needed somebody that's going to separate and get open and, the rhythm and timing passers. We need Drew Lock for Cortland Sutton to perform, right? We need a guy that's going to throw it deep. Huh? Teddy Bridgewater had no hesitation hitting this guy streaking down the field for these big gains. Even when he was covered, he was giving it up, letting it play, and Sutton just responded time and time again. Meanwhile, KJ Hamler, 3 targets, 1 catch, 5 yards. Awful. Tweeted about him last week. Get rid of him. Patterson was my beautiful tweet. This was a horrible tweet. But Tim Patrick also having himself a decent day, 337 for 1, like a solid number 2, as he's always been whenever he's got his number called upon. But it's Cortland Sutton's job. This is Cortland Sutton alpha season, folks. Until Judy's back, and it's looking like it's going to be about a 6-week absence for Jerry Jeudy. He's going to be a quality high-end wide receiver 2, maybe even low-end wide receiver 1 in the right matchups. And when you face the Jets, that's the right matchup. So loved what I saw from Cortland Sutton. Love what I saw from Mike Williams. After week 1, we talked about 12 targets. We hyped all preseason. This is one of the ones where the hype actually came into fruition. It's not always all coach speak, folks. The X wide receiver role in this Joe Lombardi offense. It's what Mike Thomas did. And there was talk about this guy taking it over, Mike Williams. He's going to see more high percentage looks. Justin Herbert raving, we need to get this guy the ball more. He now has more targets than Keenan Allen on the season, 22 targets. Saw more this last week than Keenan Allen. 7 catches, 91 yards, and a score. He's got to be a top 25 receiver moving forward. I have him now slotted in at wide receiver 22, just behind DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Godwin, Deontay, and maybe Deontay, if he's hurt, will fall further than that. But he's got to be considered a high-end wide receiver too, an every week starter, cannot be on your bench, no matter the matchup. He's going to get it done every single week. He's got 25% target share on the season. He's one of only 8 receivers to have 25% target share in back-to-back weeks. That's more than Keenan Allen. Another target hog this last week, though, Michael Pittman. 8 catches, 123 yards on 12 targets. Couldn't believe it because it came against the Rams, one of the best defenses this could possibly come against. Didn't get the Ramsey shutdown treatment. He was getting open at will. 20-yarder, 42-yarder, just big play after big play. Carson Wentz got hurt, and that could both sprained ankles. I don't know how Carson Wentz doesn't know how to take a hit at this point. He's always under duress, but he just gets destroyed. Regardless, that would be a big, downgrade to Michael Pittman in his stock because who comes in like Ellinger, Eason? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's going to be a downgrade if Wentz is missing time. But if Wentz is playing, it's clear he's got a guy that he wants to lock in on, and that's Michael Pittman, folks. So keep that in mind. Pittman has risen at this point to my wide receiver 39, right around Sterling Shepard, Marvin Jones, Juju. Has a bunch. If I knew Wentz was healthy and good to go, I'd probably bump him up even 5 more. So right around Robbie Anderson, Corey Davis, maybe even ahead of all those guys I just listed, given their crap weeks this last week. A name that you might have heard me mention there, though, is Marvin Jones, 11 targets. He is clearly the number one guy here. It happened last week, led the team in targets, happened yet again. The chain mover, but also scores 55 yards on 6 catches for another TD after going 449 in a TD. In the opening drive, just looking like the main vein of this passing game. Had a solid week 1 as well. A team's going to have to throw, and it's clear that Trevor Lawrence trusts this guy the most. You got DJ Chark doing his thing as a streaker, 1 catch, 19 yards on 4 targets. He'll have some big days where he catches a bomb, maybe even 2, but Marvin Jones, the more steady role. Also, compared to Laviska Shenault, 2 catches on 7 targets for a grand total of -3 yards. Thanks, Visca. Beautiful. Loved it. It's just clear that he's not going to be like he is in this role, the joker, the screens, the creative usage, but it's not at the NFL level. Urban Meyer's not making it what it used to be. So downgrade for Chark, downgrade for Visca, but a nice bump up for Marvin Jones. So I think will be a steady wide receiver 3 the rest of the year, given this volume. Another guy that didn't rise a ton, but just worth mentioning, 24% target share for Elijah Moore after seeing just 11% in week 1. He finally got some positive yards. That was good. 4 catches on 8 targets, 47 yards. Again, Braskin Berrios had 11 targets as a slot receiver. That's more fluke. We'll see what happens when Jamison Crowder gets there. But in signs of encouragement for Elijah Moore, getting some signs of life, a reason to just not have to cut him quite yet. If we had another dud, it might have been send this guy packing. You never know if he could be the next Justin Jefferson, and he's just kind of getting his feet wet for first 2 weeks. We'll see. Worth a hold, worth noting that performance. Let's talk about the Panthers, though. Starting with Mr. DJ Moore, 26% target share through the first 2 weeks. It's clear that Darnold loves this guy, whereas Teddy Bridgewater preferred Robbie Anderson pretty clearly. DJ Moore is the guy here. 11 targets this week. He's gone 6 for 79 in back-to-back games, so very specific stat line, but he also found the end zone to go with it this week. And if it was a closer game, they really kind of capped this offense off and started handing the rock off to bleed the clock here. So we get the Texans coming up on Thursday Night Football, another beautiful matchup for this guy. I think it's fair to consider him back into the top 20 receivers. He was a guy I faded. He's a guy I think I was wrong to fade. I have him at wide receiver 21 now, right around Mike Williams. I think those guys are neck and neck. Mike Evans. DJ Moore, just always been a great player, always a talent that's been so intriguing. But now that he's actually getting the volume, can really be a big riser and a key player for the rest of the season. I got to mention maybe the biggest single receiver riser of the week, Marquis Brown. 6 catches, 113 yards, and a TD. He's now scored 8 touchdowns over his last 8 games. Dating back to last year, if you go for those last 8 games I'm referencing, he's been a top 15 wide receiver. Maybe he finally has gotten into fruition here. The first wide receiver taken just a couple seasons ago, the same class as A.J. Brown, DK, like that class. Marquis Brown was the first guy taken. I'm not saying he's going to go beat those guys suddenly, but this type of target shares, 10 targets, week 1, 6 catches on 6 targets, 69 in a TD. Pretty damn solid. 90 yards or a score again, 7 straight games with those types of stats. Good performance there from him. But as we mentioned, number 3 in target share in the NFL right now, Brandon Cooks, who saw 50% of the Texans' targets in week 2. 9 of 14, 78 yards and a TD. We've all harped upon the fact that Brandon Cooks has played with the best quarterbacks. You got the pocket aces of QBs with Drew Brees and Tom Brady. Every single guy you've played with, Deshaun Watson, right? They're all great. Well, even if it's Tyrod Taylor getting thrown the rock, Cooks is still getting it done. Half of the 28 pass attempts going his way. Davis Mills, that's a concern. 8 of 18 and 102 yards and a TD. Pretty sketchy. Good to note, though, that the touchdown did come from Davis Mills. He did lock on to Brandon Cooks, as everybody else has. I am nervous because Tyrod was looking really, really good for those first 2 weeks. I can't believe I'm saying that. It looked like he could move this offense pretty efficiently throughout the season. I don't know I can say the same about Davis fucking Mills. But maybe this means Deshaun Watson ends up returning at some point, which would boost Cooks even more. Love what I'm seeing from this guy as the clear alpha. Even if it's a run-heavy attack, Cooks is seeing a weekly 12-plus targets. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And kind of a riser. Let's look at the Chiefs wide receiver 2 situation, right? That's something we're going to kind of have to monitor week in and week out. Mecole Hardman sees 8 targets, plays 40 snaps compared to 30 for Robinson, compared to 11 for Pringle. So clear cut, number 2 behind Tyreek, who saw 50 snaps. Hardman in there for 80% snap share. Good to see. 25 routes run. Good to see. 8 targets. Very nice to see. Led the team wide receiver cabinet with those looks. Didn't score. Yeah, of course, Robinson and Pringle are the ones that find the touchdowns. But if Hardman had found the end zone, I think we'd all be talking about him as like the smash addition, the guy that you need to hold on to. It's coming. I think it is coming from Hardman. He's looking like a more complete guy. So just watching what he's doing, watching the usage, this is a guy that is rising even though the box score hasn't quite reflected it. Box score speaking, if you're watching box scores, Henry Ruggs, 113 TD, 5 catches on 7 targets. Beautiful performance, getting behind that vaunted Steelers secondary. I think this is more fluke than anything. 61-yard touchdown, sealed the win. Maybe Carr's going to push it downfield. Like, there's a reason the huge aerial boost in general, given Derek Carr's performance these days, given the Gruden offense is pushing it more downfield. That's great for Ruggs. Might not be a fluke. I still question the fact that this is the first time he's seen more than 5 targets in his career. I mean, that's sketchy. That's scary. So the deep speed's real. Maybe the added muscle is going to help him out. Maybe this is like the start that lights the fuse and this guy blows up the rest of the year. Could happen. So at 32% rostered, if he's dropped in your league, I dropped him in a league, go out and get him. Like, go see what happens. There's definitely some upside to Ruggs, the number 1 receiver drafted last year. I'm sitting here saying, yeah, he's risen on the big board because it's nice to see some life. But I don't have him. I think I ended up at like top 50 in my wide receivers. Ruggs, 50-ish right here. So I liked what I saw. I'm not like going to go blow all my fab to go get him though either. Let's talk about the Cardinals, talking about explosive offenses, who's stepping up. So we talked about the Chiefs. Let's talk about the Cardinals now. Hopkins, of course, 54-yard score. Ho-hum. Gonna score, gonna find some yards every week. But the real story was Rondale Moore, leading the team in targets with 8 targets, 114 yards, and a score. Now, the A-dot's not great. 3.9 yards average depth of target. Like, he's not going deep too often. But he did score on a 77-yard touchdown on busted coverage. And it's just the fact that he's getting peppered time in and time out. Screens, end arounds. Like, he's the guy, even though he only played 28 snaps, he ran 24 routes on him, and he got 8 targets on his 28 snaps. So on one end, it's like, yeah, he's playing the least of these guys. But on the other hand, he's getting used far more than anybody else. Rondale Moore, 33% rostered, would be my number 1 by far waiver wire addition if he's out there for you. Christian Kirk wasn't too far off in terms of the yards, 65 yards, got a nice 35-yard deep ball. He's going to just be kind of those roll the dice, has a good shot at getting a deep touchdown week in and week out in this offense in the right matchup. Next week against the Jaguars, sure sounds like the right matchup to me. So he looked okay, but actually AJ Green, Hopkins at 59 snaps, 51 for AJ Green, 35 routes for AJ Green, 5 targets for AJ Green. Kind of gross. It would be nice to get that presence removed. He did end up finding the end zone as well. So a pretty congested situation, but at one that, like, all of those guys on a week-to-week basis, someone's going to have some good value. I bet on Moore being the most steady of all of them. Another crowded course, shockingly, is the Vikings right now. I guess crowded's a pretty much of an overstatement because you got Jefferson, you got Thielen. But the fact that KJ Osborne is starting to emerge, a fifth-round rookie, really looking impressive, only 2% rostered, and a guy that you need to go out there and check for. It's kind of eating into Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen's work. We've seen Osborne see 19 and 18% target share these last couple of weeks. That's 21 and 21 for Adam Thielen, and then 19 and 31 for Justin Jefferson. So kind of up and down, a little more volatile than the days where it would have been like 25 and 26 for Jefferson and Thielen week in and week out. And Osborne led the team in yardage this week, 91 yards and a touchdown as well. Sure, a 65-yard touchdown was a big part of that, but getting the third cover, he's getting deep on a routine basis. He's looking just good. It's 2 straight weeks where he's been a clear-cut number 3 guy. And really, again, the number 1 receiver this last week in terms of yardage. I think he's got a tight grip on that third receiver role and makes some interesting noise for you fantasy rosters. And then last couple, we're looking again, explosive offenses. What's happening? Cole Beasley, 4 catches, 36 yards. Meh. Emmanuel Sanders, 6 targets, only 2 of them coming in for 48 yards. Intrigued by the usage, is only behind Stephon Diggs' 8 targets, but it might be a mess all year for the number 2 role there. And then last explosive offense to touch base on, the Bucs. Mike Evans, hello, welcome back. 5 catches on 9 targets, 75 and 2 TDs. Love it as a Mike Evans owner. That was beautiful to see. Godwin, looking like probably the steadiest bet all year. 5 targets, 62 and a TD. What the concern is Antonio Brown. 1 catch on 3 targets, 17 yards. It goes to show you nobody's kind of immune from this Bucs wide receiver carousel. Someone's probably going to have to get let out because Tom Brady can throw over 5 TDs and AB still can have an abysmal day. It's nerve-wracking in that sense, and AB only playing about 50% of the snaps here compared to a snap lead for Mike Evans, snap lead for Gronk, who barely left the field. That's concerning. I guess we haven't touched on Debo Samuel, who's been doing just everything and deserves very real top 15 consideration. But let me just tell you where I rank these Bucs rest of the season. I got Mike Evans, wide receiver 20, Chris Godwin, wide receiver 19, and then Antonio Brown fell from like my top 20 to now 28, right around Brandon Cooks, Marquis Brown, probably below those guys moving forward at this point. Despite how good he looks, it's just an inconsistent role for him. But the guy that's bumped up significantly now in back-to-back weeks, that's Debo Samuel, my wide receiver 15 right now, just below CeeDee Lamb and Allen Robinson. Sees 8 targets, 6 of them coming in, 93 yards, and a score. Pretty solid stuff. He's seen 50% of the team's air yards in back-to-back weeks now. And that's the thing with Debo. It used to be like negative air yards. Just last week alone, he had more air yards than he had all 7 games the year before. He, once again, 48 air yards coming in this week. That's not crazy. But for Debo Samuel, that's more than he had in all of his games last year, yet again. Had 101 of them last year. So just a ton of air yards coming in for this guy. A beautiful, beautiful play the rest of the season. It seems like he's taken over the clear vein of this passing attack, certainly over Ayuk, non-existent. He continues to just plummet down the rankings. He did get a catch, 1 of 2 targets, 6 yards. Woo! He did see 38 snaps compared to 24 for Trent Sherfield, but I guess it's more concerning is he's out there and nothing's happening with him. I think that will rebound. I think he might make a sneaky buy low, Brandon Ayuk. But Debo Samuel, for right now, he's the main vein. The one worry, of course, is injury, and that's kind of why Ayuk might be a nice little stash if you can get him for dead cheap, or maybe he's getting cut in your leagues. Something at some point, Debo's likely to go down. It's sad, but it's true. And if and when that happens, Ayuk might just step right back and be the guy that was the number 3 receiver in fantasy once Debo Samuel got hurt last year behind only Adams and Tyreek Hill. That's the upside Ayuk has. So I'd go get him as low as his value is right now. It's the lowest it's going to be. And I wouldn't be selling Debo. I'm not saying you got to sell high. I think that's real. It's very real. And last couple here, Jacoby Meyers, just 0 upside. I mean, cool. They've seen 23 and 21% of the targets, but what do you turn it into? 4 for 38. It's just a low volume, just an attack that's just not worth getting into. And I want to talk about the Seahawks, though. DK Metcalf, as we said, 30% target share, looking good, but he's also being inefficient on it. 6 catches, 53 yards, no scores. And meanwhile, Lockett gets 11 targets. What does he turn his into? 8 catches, 178, and 1 TD, and almost had another one. Lockett is looking like the real deal. 15 yards average depth of target, ran more routes than DK, even though they both saw 11 carries. It's definitely looking like Lockett might have that edge on DK Metcalf in this offense. That's what we talked about with Bob Condotta over the summer. He said he thinks it's going to be Lockett that steadies out in this offense instead of DK, who will continue to play his kind of role. And so far, that's come to fruition here. So Tyler Lockett, I actually bumped today just ahead of DK. They're both still in my top 12 receiver. Lockett at 8, DK at 9. But now I'm +7 ECR on Tyler Lockett's rest of season rankings. I love the guy moving forward, right into my top 20 overall as well. Sterling Shepard, big target hog. The last guy. Okay, I got 2 guys I got to cover. I'm sorry. I know this might feel like a little bit of a longer show, but I'm just trying to get every stat that's meaningful as quickly as I can. 9 of 10 targets for Sterling Shepard, 94 yards. He's now gone 10 targets, 9 catches, 94 yards, 9 targets, 7 catches, 113 in a TD, 10 targets, 8 catches, 112 in a TD, 12 targets, 9 catches, 77 in a TD in his last 4 games. All of those games were top 20 PPR games. He's looking like the clear number 1 at this point. He got the horrific Falcons coming up. He's out there in like about half of leagues still somehow. I wasn't in on this guy coming in the year. I should have seen those last couple games and thought maybe this carries over, and it does. He's got a great rapport over there with Daniel Jones. Galladay, meanwhile, just kind of floundering. So big stats over there for him. Darnell Mooney I wanted to bring up because we talked about Fields potentially taking over. He saw 4 targets from Justin Fields. He ultimately paved the way with 8 targets, 6 catches, and 66 yards. All of those led the team. Robinson did score, but he was second on the team with 24 receiving yards. Pretty anemic attack, but I do think Fields could spark that, and certainly that deep ball could really get Mooney going. What was encouraging is we saw a great all-around game from the guy. And 2 very discouraging performances. Corey Davis, only 60% route participation. Some of it was coming out early because it was such a blowout game, but 2 catches on 5 targets, 8 yards. It was looking like this guy was going to be, just never touches your bench no matter what the matchup is. Well, that's clearly not the case. That was a frighteningly bad game from Corey Davis. So he gets a little bit, pretty big bump down the rankings of the guy that is going to be fluctuating when it before looked like he was just the clear alpha that couldn't be touched. And last but not least, Marquez Calloway. Oh, is this preseason hype, or is he going to actually emerge at some point? The clear lead dog, the alpha, every single day making plays in camp and doing absolutely nothing. And maybe it's not his fault. Maybe it is. Winston, again, 111 yards, 0 TDs, 2 interceptions, the lowest yards in the Sean Payton era of all time. Either way, that's not great for Callaway. He's not getting it done right now. What's going to happen when Michael Thomas comes back? I'd hold him still if I could, but if you need the bench space, he's not a must-hold by any means. I'd like to see another week or 2 of him, but he gets the Patriots this week. I don't know if it gets any better there. I don't know that you have to hold this guy anymore. So I wanted to shout those guys out. And tight end's going to be a lot quicker, far less guys to cover. Receivers are always the most loaded position here. But I did think, Kittle, my good Lord, 4 catches, 17 yards. Is he alive? What's happening? They would rather hand it off to no-name running backs than give Kittle a chance. He already wasn't involved at the stripe, career high of 5 touchdowns. But this is getting concerning that he's not even getting these yak opportunities we had become so accustomed to. Debo Samuel emerging as the clear alpha. I'm concerned about Kittle. I bumped him all the way down. Not all the way down. He was tight end 3 before. I bumped him down to tight end 6. Like, it's Kittle. It's still Kittle. Kittle goes so low. But I bumped him below Kyle Pitts. Why? Well, Kyle Pitts had a nice day. 6 targets, 5 catches, 73 yards. Had another one really close to being a score here. Just very encouraging usage in the slot, out wide, like moving all over. He's like the number 2 receiver here, but he plays tight end for your fantasy team. So I like that. But also below Rob Gronkowski, believe it or not. I can't believe this. My tight end 19 coming into the year, now up to my tight end 4. Back-to-back weeks with 2 touchdowns. And if it was fluky, I would say, okay, just ignore it. You sell high. I don't think anything about this is fluky. He looks every bit as athletic as he's looked as in his prime. Like he looks fantastic out there. He played 51 of the snaps of like the team's 52. So he's an every snap player. He's not really rotating at all. Brait will come in or Howard will come in every now and again to give him a breather on a rushing down. But Gronk is a beast. He's going to continue to be involved at the goal line. I think the position that's touchdown or bust for the most part. Who has a better shot at a touchdown every week than Gronk, other than maybe Kelsey? Even more than Waller, I think Gronk is a better bet at touchdowns. I love the guy moving forward. I think he looks damn good, and he's now my tight end 4 on the season. Goes Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, TJ Hawkinson, Gronk, and then Pitts, and then Kittle as my top 6. Rounding out the top 7 there, and now in a lower tier than all those guys is Mark Andrews, 5 catches, 55 yards. Where is he? Marquis Brown's emergence has really put Andrews in the back seat, and yeah, sure, he's good real life-wise, I guess, but under 60 yards in back-to-back games after signing this big extension. Meh. Low volume pass attack. I don't know that he's going to get on track. He gets the Lions this week, so he better. But yeah, very sketchy. I didn't hate to see Fryett get to the end zone, 6 targets, 4 catches, 33 yards. Loving what Teddy Bridgewater's doing. But it wasn't, quite the target share we saw of week 1. So a little bit of a downgrade, but not really. Finding the end zone. Fant's going to be as steady of a tight end as you can probably find. Did hate, though, Cole Kmet, 1 target, 0 yards. Especially after last week when he saw 7 targets, played 55 of the snaps compared to 17 for Graham. It was sad. It was tough to see. But I still think you hold and see what he does with Justin Fields. Last couple, Pat Freiermuth saw 4 targets, 36 yards. Meanwhile, Eric Ebron, 0 targets. Seems to me like Fry is kind of rising there up. You need a desperation tight end. Very athletic guy, the number 2 prospect behind Kyle Pitts in this class. Big body. They called him a baby Gronk over there at Penn State, right? Interesting. Adam Troutman not targeted. Ouch. It's just one to reiterate how bad the offense was. 111 passing yards. Not a passing attack you need to go sprint to go get to. But the fact that a lot of people, Troutman, it was only 3 for 19, but he had 20% target share and he was looking like the real guy after seeing 6 week 1 look. Yeah, good. How'd that pan out? Troutman sucks. Let's stop trying to make him a thing. Juwan Johnson, meanwhile, didn't do much, but 2 targets, 1 of them getting caught for 23 yards. At least he has some sort of big play upside. Still gets the end zone looks there. So I like Johnson if I'm going to stash anybody from the Saints for tight end. And the last guy to mention is just what happened to Higbee? 1 target, 8 yards after playing 100% of the snaps. I think he'll rebound pretty good in week 3 against the Bucs. They're going to need to be pass happy, but still, he was looking like one of the few tight ends you could finally just trust on a week-to-week basis. So that was concerning to see as well. All righty, folks, that is it. Now we're getting on to your questions. Almost 50 here. Love to see it. Again, as we get to these questions, if you don't mind giving us a thumbs up, it would mean the world. Help us get out to more people. And I'm going to answer all your questions and comments here as we go. 7 p.m. Monday through Thursday, every weekday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as we said. And then 11 a.m. sit-start show, 7:30 p.m. post-game tailgate. That's our schedule for you guys. Now let's hit these questions. Good to see you, David. I appreciate your kind words. I did miss you being there for the broadcast, brother. I appreciate all your kind words all the time. Cam Geckel killed it this week. Hilaire is heading to the bench. I think he absolutely needs to get there. Glad you still killed it despite him. Julio, Debo, Shepard. I think Debo, as we talked about there. All those guys are good replacements, but give me Debo for most weeks. What up, dude? Bruce? Don't usually see you on here. I know our time zones don't usually line up, so it's awesome to be able to have you on for a show here, man. One of my favorite first original fans. I really appreciate it. What's up, Brad? Great to see you, man. I appreciate you being here. Brady is on fire. That offense is on fire. They're going for records, baby. And Brady's going to get them. Brady's going to go after it. Go Cards, baby. Yep, absolutely. That offense is just insane, Dylan Adams. Good to see you. Jameis is I had missed that one. Jameis is a piece of white dog shit. Yeah, I'm just picturing Step Brothers there. As gross as can be. Just horrible week to week. Definitely not worth any money people might have bid on him last week on the waiver wires. Mike Williams, as we talked about, 25% target share in back-to-back weeks. That X role was not just hype. It's looking beautiful. Should I keep Sermon or Mitchell? I'd keep Mitchell there, James. It's looking like everyone else around him's getting hurt. He didn't look great, but at this point, that's what I'm going with. Football Jojo. Carr over Hurts or what, Roto? I wouldn't go over Hurts. That Konami upside's too high. Even in a horrible game, this is kind of the reason you don't go him. Hurts was as bad as can be, and he still put up 21 fantasy points because he just runs. He runs. He's got a big play. He's got a big arm. So I still, I do like Carr, but not over Hurts. But Carr did get all the way up to my QB 13, given how much they're passing. But that just, again, goes to show you how big of an edge Konami codes are. Charlie, I'm back. Michael Jordan - Andy Dalton. Exactly, right? I'm never going to leave. You're going to have to peel my body off here. Matt Nagy, full body cast. Andy Dalton can't even throw, but he'll wheel him out in a wheelchair instead of playing Justin Fields, it seems. Good Lord. Mitchell, short term. I don't know about Niners' commitment to Sermon, but I just dropped Sermon for Hollywood. Oh, yeah, Hollywood, man. Can't believe he was out there for you. What a beautiful pickup, though. He's right into my top 30 receivers for the rest of the season. I love it. How high did Julio? I meant to mention, Hollywood Brown. I forget how high he got actually on my board here. Can't type in Hollywood, though. That's not going to show it. Marquise, up to 30. Wide receiver 30 when he was outside the top 50. Drew, Trade Julio Jones and Sutton for DK or A.J. Brown? Maybe for DK. You got all this depth, Terry, DJ Moore, CD. So, yeah, I mean, you don't need all those guys, so you might as well use the upgrade here, especially with all that. But to me, I'd probably be trying to get a running back. Like, do you need to get another wide receiver upgrade? Look at your depth there. You got great plays. Like, if you can use Julio and Sutton and package them with Tyson or something and get yourself a nice RB3, like that, well, really an RB1 for those type of players, I would be going for it. Half PPR. What up, Mitch? Great to see you, brother. Always great to see you. Made a trade. Thoughts? Mike Davis and Sermon for Javonte and Preston. Love it. I don't see any reason. Mike Davis brings nothing to the table right now. If you can sell him for something, do it. If you can sell him for something good like Javonte, absolutely do it. And then C. Patterson, I think he's the back to own there. I think you own that trade, West Cup. Well done. Michelle to grab Pollard. No, because we don't know what happened with Henderson, and he looked really good. I do want Pollard, though, David, so go get him. Figure it out, but not for Michelle right now. Henry equals beast mode. Link Clegg, don't I know it? I had a 97% chance of winning my Holy Cross, my college league. And especially after halftime, I went to have dinner with my parents, turn it up, look at the matchup, and Henry has 50 points. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate you smashing me like that in one half of action. Zeke, Mixon, Gibson, Saquon. Who you like rest of season? Mixon, my favorite, then Saquon, then Zeke is where I'm going there, Z-Balls. Good to see you, brother. That fumble wrenched my heart. Yeah, brutal, Mitch. I don't know what's going to happen. Let me know what you think is going to happen with that backfield. That was brutal. 125 versus 31. I have Tunyon and my opponent as the Packers D. Yeah, and that's a coin flip. I don't know. I hope you sure do. I have Rodgers. I hope he hums one to Tunyon for you. That'd be beautiful. But I can't guarantee anything there. That's an absolute of a coin flip game right there. Moreno. Elliott was my first round pick, drafted Pollard. Now you have this headache. Oh, brutal. What's going forward now? Would you ever start them both? I mean, this week you could have. It depends on the weekly matchup, but you might be able to. I think Zeke's going to still be the steadier guy week to week, and you're probably going to play him. But yeah, that could be a headache. That could really be a headache. Look at all those other running backs, though. You might not even have to play any of them, Moreno. Jones, Montgomery, Harris, Kareem Hunt. Like, Jones at least should be above those guys week to week, and maybe even Montgomery, depending on the matchup. Is Shenault droppable in all formats? That depends on your bench, your roster settings. But like the one you just said, Michelle, like if you're dropping Sony Michelle, I'd drop Shenault first. I don't think you should give up on him quite yet. He's such an intriguing talent, but he's hurt right now. Clearly, it looks like Marvin Jones is ahead of him, David. So could you drop him? If you have shallow benches and pretty deep waiver wires out there, then yeah, I think you could. Oh, it was Duke Johnson. That's who they added, yes. And TJ Yeldon. Oh, God. What a hideous backfield that is, as you said, Rob. I agree with you. But yeah, Duke Johnson's the other back there. Who knows? Maybe this is where Duke Johnson finally gets the right role. They finally get some love. If they're going to give up Elijah Mitchell freaking 17 and 19 carries in back-to-back weeks, at some point we could see Duke Johnson. I really think the sneaky play here is Jeff Wilson. Stash him in that IR because he could be the running back one come mid-year. Miles Sanders rest of the season has reset. In 3 out of 5 games with Jalen Hurts now, it was 3 out of 4. Now it's 3 out of 5. He's been a top 12 running back. I like that. I don't know why Gainwell's getting the short yardage stuff. That pisses me off. Hurts is probably going to sneak more in than Sanders does, but he's explosive guy. It was a tough matchup against San Fran. I'm not worried. I like him as like a top 20 guy. I have him. And again, everybody can check out those rankings at rotostreetjournal.com. The rest of the season big board is pinned right there at the top. I have Sanders at running back 17, just ahead of Helaire, Edmonds, Damian Harris. 22-point Michael Schneider for Hawkinson, not without the realm of possibilities. Last week you did it right, depending on your settings at least. What are you doing with Tony Jones, drop or hold? I mean, I love that question, Daniel. I think it's a great question because the offense itself, the upside with Tony Jones is right. The handcuff situation couldn't be better. Last time, Latavius Murray averaged 34 yards. That was a completely different situation. That couldn't be clearer at this point. But this offense is not one that's going to be like this juggernaut. Even if something happens to Kamara, you're getting like a lead back. Jones would be a humongous pickup, right? But taking up a bench spot of somebody else, I dropped Patterson last week for Christian Kirk. I should have dropped Tony Jones. I wish I dropped Tony Jones. I will probably be dropping Tony Jones this week. I don't think you have to hold Tony Jones. If there's nothing to pick up, then hold on to him. But if Patterson's out there, I would be going for him. Red Coco. What percentage on Patterson? So tomorrow I do my waiver wire show, so I'm not going to answer too many of these. And I don't actually know. I do more of my research on that for tomorrow. My guess right now off the gut, 30-ish. I think like you said, the wide receiver running back dual eligibility, like your wide receiver 3 could be a feature back. That's pretty nice. Yeah. Share that water. I need another swig, Clegg. Can't even get up to 20 likes. Come on, guys. Get this thumbs up. Jimmy, I'm down 27 points. PPR with Devontae Adams and Hawk. The other guy has no one. I think you're winning that one, Jim. I think Adams might do that alone. Never mind Hawkinson being a great play. Kupp is one of the best receivers in the league, and he finally has a good QB. No doubt about it, Chad McBurney. He looks like a stud. Again, like I said, top 5 wide receiver rest of the way. Pick one duo rest of the season. DK Hollywood, Julio Sutton, AJ Brown Hollywood. I think I like DK Hollywood, but Julio Sutton's not far behind. It's just like what happens to Sutton when Judy comes back? Does he get back to second fiddle? I doubt it at this point, but I'd probably go with DK and Hollywood there. Davis Singletary for A-Rob? Yes. Don't hesitate, 909. I don't even care. I didn't even read what your running backs are. Yeah, you got Ekeler and Swift already. Yes, you need a wide receiver 3 of Visca and Callaway, your guys, and Davis is useless and Singletary sell high. Yes, do that now. And you get Pittman too. Yeah, I mean 100% yes. But if you have to give him up, now it gets a little tighter, but I still probably would do it. Dude, you get me hyped for next week. Love it, Jimmy Bridges. Great to see you, brother. Love it. Usually a Facebook guy, so it's nice to see you over there on YouTube. Should I trade Daryl, Waller, Debo for Najee, Andrews, DJ Moore? No. It's close, but I don't know if I believe in Najee enough to make that trade happen. Like, that's the reason you would do that. Love the stiff arm I saw. That line's bad, though. I don't want to get rid of Waller and Debo. Like, I think Waller's a clear edge over Andrews, even if Najee's a clear edge over Daryl. DJ Moore and Debo are about even, but I'd rather have Debo there. I think I hold their bruise, and it's close. It's very close. But I don't typically do trades unless it's like a big win. How do you feel about Tyler Higbee? I think I kind of answered that, right? One target, horrible, but 100% of the snaps 2 weeks ago, right around there this week. I think he rebounds. He'll be fine at the tight end position, but it looked like he might be able to jump into that like top 6, top 7, and now he's just with those kind of wavering around in the top 11 cesspool. Damien Harris and Julio and receive Darren Waller. If you have the depth around them, then yes, I think that's a very fair deal. I would go for Waller there. Such a big edge. It's rib cartilage. Did they give a timeline with that, Mike? I knew it was ribs, but I didn't know if there's any type of timeline attached to it yet. How are you feeling, Tyson Williams? He looks so good, but it's a mess. 49% of the snaps, 38 for Murray, who gets the touchdown. The longest touchdown or longest carry of the day goes to Freeman. It's going to be a rotation of shit. So, I mean, if you could get Metcalf for Tyson, then do that now. Don't even wait a second. Please do it now. That would be robbery. I can't imagine that. Appreciate all the content. Got the win this week. Would you drop Ayuk and Chenault for Marquis Brown and Sterling Shepard? I think you got to pick up Marvin Jones. I would drop. Yes, I would do that. I would drop Ayuk and Chenault for Brown and Shepard first. I'd like to have Marvin Jones too, but yes, Marquise Brown and Shepard I have higher than Jones by a little bit. Sarah, and I appreciate you appreciating the content. Thanks for being here. But yes, I drop both those guys, Brown and Shepard. Gronk at my flex. I don't think you sell high. No. I mean, maybe if it gets you like the big running back upgrade you need or something, but I don't think this is a fluke with how good he looks. I don't think it's a fluke. Thumbs up for the hype explanation, all the energy. Twin, I appreciate that, man. That like button does help us get out to more people. So if you like what we're doing, I would appreciate that, especially if you want to sub, hit that bell. We're going to be live at 7 every day other than Friday, and then 11 a.m. on Sunday, 7:30 p.m. on Sunday. So appreciate that, Twin. Thumbs up does help us keep getting out there. What's up, Wolf? Your thoughts on running backs? Kamara, Mixon, CEH. Worried about CEH. A little bit worried about Kamara as we expect. I talked about these guys at length, Mohammed. So, rewind the show, re-listen to it. These are also all available at a good time to pump. These are all available as podcasts as well the next day. Or not all of them, but most of the shows. Like the Waiver Wire show I do tomorrow night. Not worth a podcast on it because it's useless by that time. But this will be available as audio if any of you guys prefer that. Fantasy Fullback Dive is where you can find it on iTunes, everywhere you listen. So check that out. So I went into all these guys, Mohammed. I'm not going to give you too much on every single one, but I like Mixon and Kamara. I'm still fine with them. Henderson's all about injuries. He's looking great. He's the guy right now if he's healthy, but that's the rub with him, and he's hurt. CEH really does worry me, though. I am scared. Am I mad to start Daniel Jones over Josh Allen? Yes. You are mad. I was going to say no. I see it. The rushing upside, 95 yards and a TD. But I'm not benching Josh Allen for Daniel Jones ever. Twin, I'm sorry. That is psychotic. We got to put you in a straitjacket, brother. That's nuts. Superflex, though. It's Superflex to get him in there, but not over Josh Allen. Come on. Start 2. Kamara, Barkley, Sanders. I think I'm benching Sanders there. I really think Barkley, this is it. This is when you should have bought low. He's going to come out and explode this week. I'm pumped for him. And Kamara, it's Kamara. I know he had a bad week. We're not benching him yet. I'm scared. I'm a little more nervous. My ass is puckering a little bit, but I'm not benching him yet. Nolan Reed, just as he did last year with CEH against the Bills, he'll give CEH the opportunity to make up for it, prove himself. If he fails at that, the backfield's going to be a mess. Big dice roll. I think he'll succeed. I mean, when he gets the work, he looks okay. So I don't know. But I'm worried big time. Half PPR, Eli, James, or Latavius. One of you mean moving forward or starting this week? Eli Mitchell probably the play either way. Hopeful for him to play Sunday for the Rams. Okay, so maybe Sony's not a must hold, but he looked good, and we just got a reminder of the fragility of Henderson. He takes one more big shot to those ribs, could be going down. Free kicks. What up? Hey, sexy, got a question. All right. I have a hero running back strat. I love running backs, so I'm with you. What should I think about Eli Mitchell at my running back 2 for week 3? I mean, you must not have a hero running back because so hero meaning you got one monster. Now I get what you're saying. One monster and then some weak stuff. You can probably consider Eli over there. Free kicks, yeah. I think he's going to be a decent running back too. I don't know who they're facing week 3, to be honest. I do my ranking show on Wednesday. So I'll have a better answer for you there. And I would like to know who your other options are. But I feel pretty good with Hasty now knocked out for a bit. With Sermon and concussion protocol, they might not have anybody else to give the ball to. So yeah, you can feel pretty good about that. Zach Hansel, what's up, brother? Superflex League. Fant, Elijah Moore, and Thomas Edward, Patrick Brady for KO. You'd get Kyler. You're kind of giving up crap besides Thomas Edward, Patrick Brady, who's I love. But I could see this deal. You really going to need Fant and Moore? Who's your tight end? I would probably pull this trigger, especially in Superflex. And AJ Brown and Mike Davis for Najee. EK Pugh, good to see you. It comes down to AJ Brown for Najee because honestly, Mike Davis means nothing to me at this point. I hate to say it. Was getting him in round 6 in a few leagues. It was a stupid pick. Don't want anything to do with him. I thought the Falcons would look better than this. I would do it AJ Brown and Davis for Harris, though, yes. I would not do it for CH. I want to see if he rebounds. Sutton, Cooks, and Rondale Moore on the bench. So you got the depth to absorb that move. I would pull that trigger, Pew. All right, last one for Francisco. Love you. Good to see you coming in late here. Fluke win, even though I had Zach Wilson. What were you doing starting Zach Wilson against the Pats? Fields have decent value and standard? Yes, 100%. It's the rushing QB, 2 QB. You have Herbert? Yes. Fields over him all day. Over Zach Wilson. All right, fine, Andres. Last one. Captain T. Elette took Komet and Everett because of the promise. Do we still believe in the upside? Was there ever that much upside for either guy? They both have a good shot at a touchdown week to week, but neither one of them had the upside of reaching the top 7 ever. So, you roll the dice, you hope for a touchdown. It's looking like Gronk was the other guy. So yeah, Fields, no other choice. Yeah, exactly. So Fields is definitely a better option than Zach Wilson, in my opinion. Other than Elijah Mitchell, it's AJ Dillon, Lat, Trey, Javonte. Javonte is intriguing, especially against the Jets. Pretty bad team. But I'm probably going to go Eli. We'll see what's playing out at running back. Come back on Wednesday, 7 p.m. free kicks. As long as you keep calling me sexy, I'll keep answering your questions. But no, I would go Eli, I think, over Javonte, but we need to see what type of running back stable they have coming into the game. He just want top 15. Yeah, we're not being greedy here, right? All righty, folks. Well, I'm going to go get ready for Monday Night Football. I need 15 from Adams and Aaron Rodgers. If they can't get me this, then Aaron Rodgers is getting set packing, folks. So fingers crossed. That should be a no-brainer lock. I hope so. I hope you guys get your wins, whatever you need tonight on Monday Night Football. We'll be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. for the Waiver Wire show. So come check that out. Get on your Waiver Wire questions there. Thank you for your comment there, Twin. Top content. Go enjoy the game. Cheers to you as well, guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really means the world. Likes and subscriptions if you haven't already to know we're going to be live. Hit that bell. I like it. I like it a lot, guys. So thank you. Best of luck again for whatever you need today. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. In a world full of fantasy sheep, guys. Be the wolf.